We're back here on Phelps Island in Mound as we wrap up our series on the book of Revelation. We're on the island because that's where it all began 2,000 years ago with the Apostle John on the island of Patmos getting a vision. So as we've discovered in this series, that Revelation is a revelation of Jesus to John for the church against the empire in the first century. Some things that we've discovered so far is that Jesus is among his churches. Lampstands they're symbolized by. He is with his churches and he wants to speak words to his churches. The main word is to remain faithful representatives of his upside down kingdom in the midst of the other worldly kingdoms. And throughout this entire series, we've tried to look and redefine the word apocalypse, to make it not a gloom and doom negative thing, but rather a prayer for the people of God today, that God would reveal more and more of himself, more of his will for his people, more and more of his kingdom that's coming, and how we can embody that now. So Lord, we just pray for an apocalypse, not at the end of history, but right now for your people, the church, in this moment in time. Today, as we wrap up, we want to look more at what it means to resist the lure and seduction of empire, and then what does it mean to hold fast and set our eyes on that coming kingdom that we, the church, are called to make visible right now, today, in the middle of history.
So now that we're beginning to get a grasp of the apocalyptic imagination and how to read a revelation as a theopolitical critique of the empire in all ages of history, we can have a little fun. You know, in chapter 11, we see that we see two beasts, one beast coming out of the sea, one beast coming out of the land. And these beasts are two socio-political economic systems that are vying for people's attention and allegiance. The thing with beasts is they don't attract their followers by looking ugly and mean and cruel and evil. No, that's why the next image we're given is it's a harlot who's riding the beast. And harlots don't draw a following by looking cruel and evil and being mean, and they do it by seduction, by looking all pretty, by putting on lipstick, by showing some leg. They lure and seduce people into following them. That's why we're told that standing behind these two beasts are the dragon. They're being animated, influenced, deceived. They're being played by the dragon, the serpent of old, which of course refers to the snake we meet in chapter 3 of the Bible. And so we can have a little fun and ask, in our day, are there two beasts who are setting themselves up as an alternative to the kingdom of Jesus, as the right path forward, for the way to run the world, for the way to peace and justice? Jesus himself said that all earthly kingdoms are under the influence of Satan. This doesn't mean that every leader and politician are somehow under the influence of Satan. It means that we are all tempted to get led astray. We are all daily being called to faithful resistance, wisdom, and discernment. And so what does Revelation say? It says very clearly that the calling on Jesus' people is to come out of her. Speaking of Babylon, this dark city of destruction and corruption and exploitation, come out of her, come out of the harlot, which is quite graphically sexual. Come out of her, get out of bed. You have one bride, one bridegroom, and you have one allegiance. And it's time for the people of God to wake up to the lure and seduction of earthly politics. not to distance ourselves and not be actively speaking into and swaying and influencing, but to be very careful to separate Jesus' kingdom and his political vision for peace and prosperity, which is a global vision of a multi-ethnic people. It's not America first. Nationalism is one of the most dangerous and anti-Christ movements afoot right now, because Jesus' vision, the Christian vision, is to bring together under the banner of Christ one new humanity made up of people from all tribes, tongues, and nations. And so any rival vision that is calling us to put this one particular nation first and put others second is anti-Christ. I know we're not used to hearing this. We're not used to thinking like this. The American church has bought into a gospel for 500 years. It's been about personal salvation only, about heaven in the sky when we die. And we've screened out all of the kingdom language, even though it's the one thing Jesus talks about ad nauseum. And so, kingdom people, our call is to be faithful followers of the Lamb and to resist the beast in all of its forms, in every era of history, including this one. Come out of her, my people. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't be involved, active in politics. This doesn't mean there aren't godly men and women in all sectors of society, in government office. Not at all, far from it. There are good and godly people trying to work within these imperfect systems, within the different versions of the kingdoms of the world, and that's a good and fine thing, insofar as you keep your allegiance to the Lamb central and ultimate, because the end game for earthly politics right now is that they are asking for your ultimate allegiance. And if you don't line up across the board with this or that political party, if you question the beast in any of its policies, you are going to be cast out. So I hope you see by now how this understanding of apocalyptic literature makes the book of Revelation one of the most relevant and potent biblical texts for the church in this moment, in this day and age. Once we take it back from the end times, left behind secret code to the end of the world people, we make it relevant again for right now here, as a document, as a guide, as a discipleship manual for how to live faithfully and to follow Jesus and to be the church in the middle of our own version of empire.